r/AskReddit. Have you ever left in the middle of a date? If so, why? Blind date, Indian restaurant. First thing he does is produce a folder of photos of him and various celebrities. Shows me them, one by one. He keeps clutching at me. After about 15 minutes of this, I say this isn't really. I don't think we are compatible. I think I should go and get up to leave. He stood up too and shouted at me as I left. No, I did not look back. Ed, this happened in the mid 1980s, so unless the guy you're thinking of is now in his 70s, it's not him. Yes, a real manila folder with 8x10 glosses in a real manila envelope. Mid 1980s. No Photoshop, no iPhone. The two celebs I remember seeing are Jimmy Carter and the Dalai Lama. Remember, this was 30 years ago. No, I don't remember what he was shouting. I was focused on GTFO there, and as I said, 30 years ago. No, I don't remember which Indian restaurant, but it was in Cambridge, MA. Yellow walls. Yes, he was a Harvard man. No, he was not blind. A blind date is when somebody fixes you up with somebody you don't know, or when you go out with somebody you've met via a dating service or ad. No photos back then, just descriptions. Also, I'm so glad this entertained you all. My operating principle nightmare experiences is this is God's way of giving us drinking stories. You've proved me right. I was in my late teens and went on a date with a friend of a friend. He seemed nice and I got the okay from my BFF, so I anticipated a pleasant quiet evening. We were just going for frozen yogurt and TV at his house. After all, well, everything's going smooth and he seems really sweet. He tells me he likes to write poetry and my teenage girl brain is thinking, wow, a sensitive guy. How refreshing. Then he tells me that he wants to show me something. I assumed it was a poem he wrote because we had just talked about it. Me, okay. What is it? Him, well, it's not ready yet, but it will be in a couple minutes. As he leans over on his side, away from me. Me, confused, because I'm expecting a poem. Is he going to write a poem in a couple minutes? This is going to be awkward. Then he starts making all these innuendos about what it is. I get annoyed because he sounds like he's describing his penis, and the joke is dying fast. Finally, just to shut him up, I say, if it's your dick then no, I don't want to see it. Him, oh, okay then. And he sits back normally on the couch. I'm super confused and think he's pulling my leg. I ask if he's kidding and says no. He seriously wanted to whip out his junk and show me. Me, what the hell am I supposed to say to you while your dick is out? Him, well, my last girlfriend told me she'd been waiting to see it all night. Me, stunned silence. Then, OHHK. Being the awkward teen I was, I sat back into the couch, not touching him. We had been cuddling up until that conversation, and uncomfortably waited out the remainder of whatever show was on TV, and then bolted. After I got home, I called my BFF and frantically told her what had happened. Her response? Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. He likes to do that. Had joined a new sports club and there was one guy who was quiet and kind of just hung around the periphery of the group. I felt kind of bad for him, so was always trying to bring him into conversations and talk to him. One night we all went out for drinks after the game and I talked to him for a while. Conversation was hard work, but he seemed like a nice guy. He texted and asked me if I wanted to go out for coffee. I wasn't really interested, but knew given how quiet he was that it probably took a ton of nerve to text me that, and I thought maybe in a 1:1 environment he would be more comfortable, and I could get to know him a little more. We met at the coffee shop, and he had a big backpack with him. We ordered drinks then chatted, with me again doing most of the talking. He rarely initiated, but would answer questions. About 1/2 hour in he said he had a few things to show me to let me get to know him better. He then did a show and tell from his backpack, pulling out various items and pictures and telling me about them. Some were kind of interesting, a family trip, and some I had no idea how to respond to. Here is a picture of how I had my hair cut in grade 8. He had stuffed animals and lots of items from his childhood. I kept trying to bring the conversation to the present to find out if the item linked to a current interest or hobby, but he kind of had the story about each item rehearsed, and he would go right back to the show and tell. Eventually the table was full of stuff and I tried to politely say that I had seen enough and change the topic. He told me had still had more to show me. I ended up saying I felt sick and left. I felt kind of bad, but it was just getting too weird. We had been on a couple of dates, and he invited me to his house to watch a movie. I showed up, and he immediately brings me an ice pick. I don't like vodka and I wasn't in the mood to drink, but I thanked him for the drink and I sipped on it a little. He commented that I wasn't drinking fast enough. I said, oh, well, I'm not really in the drinking mood. He kept pressuring me to drink. I inspected my glass to make sure there was no residue or anything else in it. There wasn't, but when I finished he made me another without asking. I thanked him, but said that I really didn't want another. He told me not be rude, and that I should have drinks with him, if he's making them for me. When I finished that one I said I really don't want another. He brings me another. It's obvious that he's trying to get me drunk. He keeps trying to make out with me, and I said that I really wanted to watch the movie. He keeps, literally, pulling my face towards him and shoving his tongue down my throat. I turned the other way on the couch, so I had my feet down by him, and he couldn't get to my face. He then gets on the floor and walks on his motherfucking knees to my face and starts trying to kiss me again. I said I needed to go to the bathroom. I quietly called my best friend and told her I need her to call me back with something urgent in a couple of minutes so I could get out of a bad date. She did, and I took off. After that they kept trying to call and text me a lot, and I just told him, look, you were obviously trying to get me drunk, and kept forcing kisses after I said I wanted to watch the movie. This is not gonna work out. He turned up drunk and brought pictures of his time in Iraq and the army with him that he took me through painfully slowly, one by one. I politely excused myself to go for a cigarette, and he lost it, accused me of being rude, shouting about how no wonder I was single, and then sat on my coat so I couldn't run away, saying that even if I did leave, he would follow me and make me sorry. He also goes on a rant about how all graduates are entitled dickheads. He doesn't agree with women going to uni, and that I'm a middle class C*NT. He had insisted on paying for my drink, so when I came back in I said I wanted to go, and he insisted that I owe him a drink, cause he was going up Camden to meet his mates, and didn't want to be behind on the drinks front. Fine, whatever, he's clearly insane. I'll just buy him one to shut him up, then I can leave. At the bar, he begins throwing ice at the barmaid when her back is turned. Then when she turns around accusingly, points at me, and says she did it. The barmaid and I both know that it was him. After he has his pint in his hand he goes back to the table, and I confess to said barmaid that I'm on the worst date of my life and want to run away. She pours me a shot of tequila, tells the bouncer to distract him, then helped me run away as he banged on the window and shouted, "I'll find you." Ran home, sobbing like a lunatic. Dude, sometimes they know just how to help. I was staying in a nice hotel one time and had a few hours to kill before my evening plans. I decided to take advantage of their happy hour on the patio with a good book. A much older gentleman asked if he could sit on the couch next to mine. I obliged, since I was reading, and, wrongly, assumed he would leave me alone. The man ordered me a drink from the waitress. I'll have a gin and tonic, and she'll have another of whatever she's drinking, and proceeded to talk non-stop to me. It was okay, if awkward, for quite a while. I figured I would finish my drink and leave, but then he started yammering on and on about how it would take 12 little nigger boys to complete some work on his boat. The waitress, bless her, sauntered up behind him, motioned to him, and then to me, so he couldn't see. I made a frowny face at her. She came over. "Ma'am, there's a call for you in the lobby. Would you like to take it, or should we take a message?" I palmed her an excellent tip and called her direct manager and also corporate to tell them how amazing she was. I took a girl once to my favorite Mexican restaurant. She proceeded to pretty much give me a rundown of her past 5 boyfriends, why the relationship failed, how each was in bed, what they all did for a living, where they all took her for vacations. My eyes started to cross, and my blood was starting to boil. I was relegated to UN Hus and wow, that guy is an asshole responses. She seemed very disinterested in anything I had to say, and I was fucking done. As I was about to get up and walk out, the waiter brought my fajitas. So you know what, I just rolled with it. Started asking questions about her ex-boyfriends. All the while, I was stuffing my face with tasty fajitas. Honestly, most of the dudes sounded like pretty good guys, but I'd put on a brave face and shit talked them in between bites. Once I was full, I got up, said I needed to go to the bathroom, paid for my half of the meal at the register, and just left. She was busy texting someone and didn't even notice. On my way home, she texted me and asked me where I was. Told her that I left and that maybe she should ask one of her ex-boyfriends to come and pick her up since she spent the last 45 minutes doing nothing but talking about them. Got a couple fuck yous, you're an asshole texts on the drive home, but it's been radio silent ever since. On a date with this girl from the local college. Things are going alright at first. She's looking for something purely physical, to which I had no objections, so she suggests we go back to her place. The apartment is kind of a shithole, sparsely furnished. Her burnout roommate is rolling a blunt on the coffee table in their dimly lit living room by himself, empty 40 bottles all over. Still, no objections. I can get down with some grimy punk rock shit, to an extent. So we go to her room and start making out. She puts on some music. We begin taking our clothes off. Just when things are getting really hot, she excuses herself to the bathroom. She's gone a while, maybe 5 minutes, so now I'm getting bored. I get up, start checking out the books on the shelf, then I step on something and it sticks to my foot. I pick it off. It's a little 2 inches square of tinfoil, all burnt on one side. Then I notice the used up tea candles in the trash, and the spoon, Q-tips, and steel wool on the desk. It's not subtle, this chick is a junkie. I'm still waiting for her to get back from the can, so I can politely excuse myself. When it occurs to me, she's taking so long she's probably passed out. I go knock on the door, no reply. Knock again. What the fuck? I'm almost done. I know what you're doing in there. Yeah? So what? You can't judge me. You're making it pretty easy to judge you, actually. Oh, go fuck yourself. Great idea, enjoy your heroin. I can hear her scrambling to put her kit away and clean her shit up, but there's really nothing left to be said. I go back to the bedroom, put my shoes on, and casually leave through the window, so I won't have to say anything to her creepy roommate. She starts blowing up my phone almost immediately. Where are you? What street are you on? Come back. Let's talk. It's NBD, I'll pick you up. She had given me a ride there and was now driving around looking for me. Thankfully, a close friend of mine lived on that same block and he was home, so I just walked in Kramer style and explained the situation. Hi dude, sorry to bother you. My date's on a bunch of dope and is following me around trying to convince me to give her the D. Can I hang out here for a half hour? Never heard from her again. Friend gave me a beer. Yes, we met at a nicer restaurant, sat down and had a decent conversation. We started to look over the menu and the wine list. I asked if she had a preference regarding the wine. She said no. I ordered a bottle of Pinot Grigio, since I didn't know her preferences or what she might order. Kind of a nice middle of the road selection. When it came, the waitress brought 2 glasses, did the usual tasting, and, when she went to pour my date a glass, she quickly declined. The waitress poured me a glass and left. I asked her if she'd prefer another drink. She launched into what I can only describe as a temperance lecture. She was stridently anti-alcohol and my ordering wine had clearly upset her. This was a first date, so I had no way of knowing any of this, and had she let me know her thoughts ahead of time, say, when I asked her preference, or when I was ordering, I'd have gotten something acceptable to her. Instead, I was getting a lecture that would not stop. I got called a drunk and rude and insensitive repeatedly by someone I just met in the course of about 5 minutes. After a few minutes the waitress came over and asked if everything was okay. I told her no. Told my date that our date was over and asked the waitress if I could be reseated at the bar. The waitress and my date both looked shocked. My date picked up her sweater and purse and stalked out. I picked up my glass. The waitress picked up the bottle and led me to the bar. In the bar, I met a very nice young lady with different ideas and we shared the bottle and a very nice evening. I'm late to the party, but my story involves a circus girl I met over Tinder, of course. She had a very interesting profile about her being an aerial acrobatic for a circus that toured all over America, so I swiped right for her, plus she was super cute. She messaged me on April 1st saying she had a show that night and wanted me to come see it. I had reservations about trusting a stranger I just met online on April Fool's Day, but I went away. But it turns out she was telling the truth. I arrive at the venue and I immediately notice it is much smaller than I anticipated. There was no way she was going to be performing aerial acrobatics on a stage with a ceiling only 20 feet tall. I go to buy my ticket, and I find that my date is the one selling them. This is a perfect time to introduce myself, so I do, but she doesn't give any hint of recognition that I'm the guy she has been messaging over Tinder. The line to the window was long, so I didn't press the issue. The plan was to meet up for drinks after the show, so I just shook it off, took a seat and just planned on approaching her after the performance. The circus was a disaster. The host started off the night by making the most inappropriate racist jokes I've never even heard from my close friends' mouths. There is a time and place for jokes like that, and I consider myself very open to a wide variety of humor, but when a large group of strangers are furtively looking around to see if anybody is laughing or offended, then things get awkward fast. His crew was talking loudly and making noise in the back room, and he had to talk over them most of the night. Overall, he did not use professionalism. He was a contortionist and a sword swallower, and was honestly the only saving grace and circus-y part of the show. My date's bid was up second. She didn't do her usual aerial act, but instead did a performance involving a chair and a cream pie. It was nothing special whatsoever, and even the audience could barely applaud in the appropriate pauses meant for applauding. Her following performer, however, is the one that made me leave during intermission. He was a performance artist who walked up to the mic and started reciting a poem. Cool, I thought. It was actually a pretty neat poem, right until he took his pants and underwear off in the middle of reciting it. Fortunately for the audience, he had his dick tucked in between his legs, so it wasn't full frontal nudity per se, but still slightly disturbing nonetheless. He continued the deep serious poem without any mention of his debriefing, and finished his poem by exclaiming "Hail, Satan," and turned around and taking a bow, simultaneously presenting to the audience the good old dick and balls he had been shyly hiding, along with the consolation prize of his asshole. I had never noped so hard in my life. I didn't even talk to her before I left, and unmatched her the next day. She sent me a message the following morning thanking me for coming. So she obviously recognized me, but was just using Tinder as a way of advertising and getting guys to pay for her shitty circus show. My ex. We dated for almost a year. I started dating her about 6 months after my wife and I separated. Things were okay at first. She was nice and sweet. There were a few things that bothered me. First, she didn't know how to knock. She would always just walk in my back door when she came over. I asked her to stop a few times, but it never really clicked. She'd act like I was inferior because I didn't go to college. I was 8 years older than her, 33 over 25, and have a good job and make decent money, but she always acted like she and her college buddies were better, and last she was abusive. The one thing I couldn't tolerate was her hitting me. She did it once. I explained to her exactly why that wasn't appropriate and that it wouldn't be tolerated. She did it again. Again I scolded her. It seemed to fall on deaf ears. We were out with several of her friends at some fancy restaurant. She had driven, and we left my car at her house about 50 miles away. The dinner was going well. I was charming her friends with my jokes and listening to them, just getting to know people. I said some joke, don't remember what it was, but it was slightly off color. Nothing that would get any of the other patrons to look at me, but kind of a shocker type joke. She slapped me right in front of her friends and in the middle of a crowded classy restaurant. I got up, told her I didn't need this and walked out. Being 60 miles from home in one direction and 50 from my car in another was quite a shitty predicament. I called a friend who picked me up and took me to my car. Gotta love friends who come get questions asked. Not technically a date. Was solo at the bar on Easter night and started chatting with a solo lady next to me. She was cute and conversation starts out decent enough with some light flirting sprinkled in. Gradually get hints that she's the self-absorbed type who somehow always finds a way to steer the conversation back to herself, but think maybe she's just nervous and give her the benefit of the doubt. We are a few drinks deep and had moved seats to another part of the bar to sit closer. Religion comes up again. She forgot we already talked about this. She's Christian with good morals. I'm non-religious but perhaps spiritual and believe everyone is entitled to their own beliefs as long as they don't infringe on others. She seemed surprised but okay with this the first time. This second time however, stunned, wide-eyed, bitch mode engaged. You don't believe in God. On Easter, you say you don't believe in God. You piece of shit. You piece of shit. She then motions to pour her glass of water on my head, and I calmly somehow defuse that. She continues, I can't believe I wasted my time with you. She has attracted the attention of the bartender and patrons. He doesn't believe in God. On Easter, I'm somehow able to covertly ask the bartender, check please, separated, swiftly pay, calmly say something like I enjoyed talking to you, but you are being rude, and I'm leaving. Have a good night. And I calmly walked out as Miss Good Morals sat stunned that I left her. Only once actually. TL. Doctor, a sugar-coated rehashing of that one time I was too good for a girl/white girl that doesn't believe in dinosaurs, know what a neurotoxin is, or that she's also white. So when I was in my undergrad years, I was studying pre-veterinary medicine. This meant a lot of the people in my major were science nerdy girls. I was a shy kid, but I always sat by this girl Nicole in my repro class, a class about pig dicks. Erotic, right? Nicole was quiet, very smart, and well, she had it going on. Dark hair, petite pale skin. Anyway, I go basically all semester not asking this girl out and finally I get ballsy, and after class I just asked her if she would wanna get food with me later. And yeah, that worked. Shocked the shit out of me. I'm all stoked for this date, and I got us reservations at the local Italian restaurant. Nothing fancy though. Everything is going well until she asks if I have any pets. I tell her about my blind kitten, Ray Charles, and she brings up weed. I had mentioned I smoked occasionally. She goes, aren't you worried it'll hurt Ray? I paused, then I said, no. I smoke the weed. What do you mean? She goes, aren't you worried about the neurotoxins from the secondhand smoke hurting Ray? I was gonna correct her, but then I was like, huh, good point. AWK silence. Strike one. A bit later we are talking about our fave movies. I say mine is a tie between Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Jurassic Park. She says she's never seen JP. I asked why, and she straight up says, because it's a stupid story, and seemed kinda upset. And I said something like, oh yeah, the plot is a bit weak, but the CGI. That was one of the first times people got a good idea of what dinosaurs were like. She's like, haha yeah, like if they existed. I gotcha, and I was like, yeah, haha, wait. Did you say if they existed? Thinking in my head, fuck. She OBV meant when ya little asshole. She's like, yeah, if they existed. How do we know for sure? At this point I couldn't tell if this girl was trolling me or what. I was just dumbfounded. I was like, oh, well, as you may know we have like a lot of dinosaur bones and fossils. She looks at me and scoffs while saying, scientists cold made those. Strike 2. I tried to explain that no one would ever fund a project that's sole purpose is to just fathom species that never existed, but she changed the subject. At this point, I've realized I made a mistake. This girl was as dumb as a box of rocks outside the classroom. Towards the end of the meal, we are bullshitting and describing our parents. She says both of hers are devout Lutherans, etc. I say my mom is a tiny little Irish holy roller and my dad is a big fat Italian atheist, and I kinda joshed about opposites attracting. She made a sorta half joke snide remark which basically was, why did your sweet mom want to marry a stupid guy like your dad? To which I said, because he's a really great guy, and he's really smart. While looking at her food she chuckles and mutters, he must not be that smart. In my head I was like, WTF is this? Why am I even fucking here right now? Did she think that would be funny to me? I try to smooth it over with a joke and go, how you know you're much sweeter in class? She takes it literally and goes, why is that? And I say, BC, to be honest I'm not getting a great first impression. She goes, ah well, you just a white boy. Strike 3. Dropped a 20 on the table and walked out. Well, I'm not sure this counts because I didn't leave, I just almost did. I thought he was super creepy and super insane on our first date. Mainly because he showed me pics of a disembodied boob on his phone that he had biopsied for cancer. He's not a serial killer, just a doctor, and gave me a long, meandering, weird lecture about the importance of doing self-breast exam so as not to end up like said disembodied boob. I texted my BFF immediately after, oh, I have the best story. I went on a date with a guy who showed me a boob on a table, all bloody, and then he lectured me about boobs. But he was all muscle Y, and I really wanted to see what his arms felt like, and then we had this great conversation over text, so we went on a second date, and he was like, I can't believe you went out with me again. I was just nervous, and you asked about my job, and I wayward vomited. Anyway, I tell that story all the time now. His family thought it was hysterical at Thanksgiving. His mom laughed so hard she cried actual tears. So now we have a really great first date story. And he sends us all, my family and his, the occasional cautionary email. Look at this lung. Don't smoke, all of you. Check out this leg bone. That white part is cancer, and it has replaced the whole bone. Go straight to the doctor when you have pain. At first my brother and sister were like, WTF, can we opt out of this listserv? But it grew on them, and now they find it hilarious. I don't even know, you guys. I find it really endearing now. We are getting married this summer. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.